The next talk we have is Joost Schuppe talking about disaster data, OpenStreetMap POI data with stable IDs for emergency planning. So I'll hand over to Joost.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Joost. I'm a long-time contributor to OpenStreetMap and also organizer. I'm part of the Belgian chapter. I work for the Belgian National Crisis Centre, where we use OpenStreetMap data and, of course, a lot of other data in our application called Paragon. So I'll be talking about what kind of data we use, why we use what we use, and what are the interesting challenges that we have along the road. So Paragon is it's basically the place where people come together when disaster strikes. So the police have their internal communication organs, the fire brigades have them, but they don't have a central structure where all of it comes together. So it's the place where people digitize and communicate whatever is related to the disaster. It's not just that, there's also an aspect of planning for disaster. So you have a database of emergency plans, which connects to a database of contacts so that you know who to call. When it comes to data, we provide multiple base maps because l'embarras du choix is better than having a map with some missing stuff. The default is OpenStreetMap, which is already nice, but I always like to go beyond the base map with stuff. And we have several layers of things that we like to call anchors, which are basically POIs. An important part of those anchors is that they are supposed to stick around and you should be able to link them to other objects, which of course is not that easy if you want to also do updates. When it comes to those external data, in the old application, the predecessor application, that was entirely crowdsourced by our users. There's like 13,000 users in total. So there's potential for crowdsourcing there, but we noticed that it's not really working universally. Like in some places it would work really well and in other places not. And basically there was a lot of chaos and not much curation going on. So one of the first things that we wanted to do was extend that with official data, because for some stuff, there's just really good data around, so just integrate it. Why have people create things that already exist? But official data also has its limitations, so from the start we also looked at crowdsourced data. When it comes to official data, well, there's definitely very strong parts of that. It's usually the data is very complete, but I put a little asterisk to say that it's complete for what is the administrative reality. So you have schools, you have all of them, except for the temporary schools, because that's not part of our data set, and also not of the international schools, because we don't give them money, so why would we care about them? When the thing is on fire, we do care about it. So that's a bit of a problem. There's a lot of standardization, so you know this object will have these fields of information, and it's always the same. It's so easy. You have a column and it says this, and that's it. But it's only standardized within a single source. And in Belgium, we have 3 or 4 regions, depending on how you count them. So every single topic is a challenge. So the last aspect, I guess, is that you can know when to expect an update, which is very nice, but you also know that that update cycle is probably going to be slower than what you want. For a lot of data sets, there's just a yearly update cycle, and when we get a report from our users like, there's a new school here, we don't want to wait a year for it to appear on our maps. And last weakness, a lot of the data sets that we are using are just basically geocoded addresses, and people are not good at writing down addresses. And it also means that you just have like a point on the map, whereas we want to have an idea of what a site looks like on the ground. So for schools, we don't just want a point, we want to have an idea of the site. So OpenStreetMap data, there we have those nice detailed polygons, but they don't have a lot of attributes. So very often it's just a school with a name and that's it. You don't have a phone number. You don't know what kind of students there are. There's a lot you don't know. On the upshot, you see, and that's in general in OpenStreetMap, things are mapped the way you actually see them in reality. So for the government, a school is something they give money to, and schools are very creative in inventing themselves in such a way that they get more money. And so, for example, you can have a site, I know I dropped that slide, but you can have like 4 schools on one site in the official data. So it's not really interesting. OSM captures reality, and reality is very practical, again, when things are on fire. We have precise geometries in OpenStreetMap. It's not just a guess in almost all cases. It's very rare to find stuff in OpenStreetMap that's not really in the right place. And which is also very practical. We want to go to all the regions of Belgium. We also want to go across the border in our application because disasters tend to not follow national borders. And then with the global data model of OpenStreetMap, you just extend your bounding box and you have all the data you need, instead of having to go to all the sources and look, how do the Dutch do this? How do the German land one do it? The other German land, and so on. So we have the continuous updates, which is awesome. If we get a report of a missing school, in many cases, I will just add it myself manually, or if it's too much feedback, we can throw it to the community. So it's updated all the time. But on the other hand, of course, as you all know, it's an unstructured process. So in some places, you have minutely updates, and in others, you will find POIs that are 13 years old. And the same goes with completeness and level of detail. It's very variable. So we asked ourselves, ¿por qué no los dos? Why not just combine the two and try to get the best of both worlds? And for some data sets, we did that. So you start with the points which are the geocoded official data sets. You find similar objects nearby from OpenStreetMap, and you try to build a link between the two. As you can see with how the points are linked to the polygons, it's not always straightforward. It's not always the closest object that is the correct one. So you need some algorithms to make the correct choices. Then a big part of what we do with OpenStreetMap data is filtering and simplifying, because we OpenStreetMappers like our data models to be more complex than what we need for disaster planning. So, for example, for sports, I start off with 230,000 records. Then I start filtering, and in the end, I just have 34,000. So in this case, it's really the most extreme case of if you summarize from the level of detail that is there to what we actually need, you can throw out 90% of the data, which is convenient for our users as well, that they don't get overloaded with much more detail than they actually need. So in the end, so I've been working on this for a bit over 2 years now. This is basically the list of all the topics that we touched. And you can see on the one hand, a lot is coming from official data and a lot from OpenStreetMap. It has to do with complexity of getting the data on the official side, the quality of the data sets. Maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe they just don't want to give us the data, but because we have too much users and it's too dangerous. But so yeah, over half I think is coming from OpenStreetMap. We didn't just copy from OpenStreetMap, so everything that has an asterisk, we compared against official sources before doing a first ingestion. So I think every layer, if you use it in the way that we do, you can't just use it. There's always going to be a mess and things that are really too crappy to just start using. So you need some sort of quality control first. We only have a few mixed data sets where we actually do the conflation between OpenStreetMap and the official sources, mostly because it's a lot of work. It's not always that there are that like the two sites are actually that useful. I did make a module recently to just say, hey, merge these two data sets, and I just have to feed it some parameters. So that makes it easier. So these last two are like that. So I expect in the future to have more mixed models. So all the whole list, it's basically only myself that manages it. So I needed to work a lot on efficiency of the processes. So basically, there's a server that runs for each layer. It runs a process every month. It ingests new data, compares it to the old, makes a table with suggested updates to push to the database, makes summary statistics to help you make an automated choice like, yeah, definitely something is wrong here. And it makes a visualization of the things that have changed. Because if you do it like this, then the number of changes is limited enough that you can do a visual inspection of all the changes. Because I filter only the stuff that's really obviously special. And so only after this manual inspection do we push it to the database. Yeah, so to come back to the ID problem. So yeah, as you've been linking your anchors to other objects, you want to be able to do an update, but without changing the ID. And yeah, OpenStreetMap IDs are interesting, sometimes stable, not always. So you can have a point that becomes a polygon or a relation, or yeah, all sorts of things can go wrong. By the way, this does not always, it's not only in OpenStreetMap a problem. Some of the data sets we receive have no ID, or they have an ID, but it's not unique. Sometimes it's interesting. So how do we deal with that? So we have a single generic update process. So we have the ingestion processes, which are all subtly different, but they'll all do the same. They make a standardized format. So every of our layers has exactly the same column structure, and it's just like the special properties are in a JSON. And each time that ingestion table has entirely new unique identifiers. And then we compare it to the older copy that we have, and we look for the original ID. So the first step in the generic update process is that we try to look at, okay, you have one object on the one side with this ID in the original source, and we have a new object of that. It's the same ID, okay, it's likely the same. Is it still in the same general area? Then it's probably the same object. We're looking within a specific category here. So, for example, if I have two synonyms for things that I consider schools, and it changed category, and it's still the same object for me. So I don't have the risk to have a hospital turn into a gas station, because that's an entirely different process. So that fixes most of the issues, actually, just first step. If it doesn't, then you have a list of candidates for fuzzy matching. So you have the stuff that is new and maybe connected to something old with a different ID, and you have the old stuff that didn't find an update. And then what we do is near the new object, we go looking in a radius that depends on the topic for candidates that could represent the same object. If there's only one and it has certain thresholds that we meet or we filter, like we filter based on the name and some address information to find candidates that are good enough, let's say. And if there's only one candidate that's good enough, then we say, okay, this is probably the same object. And then we consider it as an updated version, which has a new ID in the original data, but retains the same ID that we applied. And then the rest, those are considered new or deleted. Yeah, so data quality, it's always an issue regardless of what data you work with. We try to work with both the official sources and OpenStreetMap to make improvements. With official sources, it depends. Sometimes you can have really constructive solutions. Usually it involves a lot of patience. And yeah, very often there's simply no reply at all. With the OpenStreetMap community, it's generally more productive and easier to work on things. But yeah, again, you can't just trust the data. Like when I was working on data about cultural centers and concert halls and so on. So I always do like a small visual inspection, and then you see, there's a concert hall somewhere in the suburbs. That's not very likely. It's also quite small, and it's in someone's back garden. And it was mapped, 13 years ago. So yeah, there was a concert hall in someone's garden for 13 years. We also did like larger OpenStreetMap projects. For example, for fire stations, the official source is just a PDF, which is not very practical. Are you alive? Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, we invented some tagging as well here, because in OpenStreetMap a fire station is just a fire station. But for us, it could be something that is operated by the official fire brigades. But you also have like military fire stations, which are totally different from our point of view. You have some private fire stations on industrial sites. Yeah, I think that's about it. So I invented some tagging to be able to categorize those. Yeah, and so we did several of those kinds of tests, which sometimes we organize just on the wiki, but mostly we use MapRelet. So basically, you start from either OSM objects that you see, like they don't comply to the standards that we would need, or you filter your official source data and you say, hey, there's 10,000 objects here that the government knows about, but OpenStreetMap doesn't, so let's turn it into a task. It's really easy to set this up, by the way. You just need a GeoJSON. Most of the work is spent on writing decent instructions and fixing mistakes of people who are too enthusiastic. It comes with an awesome management dashboard, which is very useful if you want to convince your management that you're doing a good job. So we have 6 big challenges, and I'm always frustrated. I always think it goes too slow. But then we calculated that 1,500 tasks were finished, and that represented 2 months of full-time equivalent work. So yeah, it's a big donation we get from the OpenStreetMap community at that point. Yeah, the kind of things we see, it's interesting. So you have a lot of mapping for the renderer still that people are just adding. They make a mess of which attributes belong to the amenity. So they will draw an outline for the site, like here is a hospital, but then all the other tags they will put on the building, stuff like that. And I know you can like automate that when you read it, but I'd rather like clean it up. So that kind of thing we do. Over-enthusiasm is always my enemy. So yes, we're building a new prison, but that doesn't mean that it's a prison. A prison that's being constructed is not a prison. So yeah, stuff like that. Again, enthusiasm. So we're using places of worship. There's a lot of them. We're really not interested in wayside shrines. There's no risk involved with wayside shrines. However, there's about 13% of all the places of worship that have no tags at all that can help you even make a guess about if it's something significant or just a wayside chapel. So that's the first challenge that we have. One of the bigger ones that are still open. And then next up, we'll go to the likely category, where it's basically based on the name alone that you make a guess of is it a church or a chapel. We did some challenges with a mixed Belgian-Dutch audience a year or so ago, and a Dutch guy said like, "Oh, but Belgium is so messy because all the mess that I shared was in Belgium." So I can confirm this problem is the same in the Netherlands and in Germany and France is actually better. So yeah, it's not just Belgium. Thank you. So if you want to help, we have some challenges open. It's mostly fun and quick work, not always. And yeah, I'd like to mention that my employer is also a corporate member of the Belgian OpenStreetMap chapter, which is quite nice because it's a significant financial support for us. And of course, yeah, if as an OpenStreetMap Belgium chapter, you can say that the National Crisis Centre is a member, that's really quite cool. Yeah, so if you want to contact us, there's a general data team email. Again, the link to help. The code of the whole project is not open source. However, all the processing scripts are open source. It's written in R because why not? But it's relatively readable, I think. So yeah, if you have any questions about those, I'd be very happy to help you make use of those. Okay, thank you.
Question? Oh.
Awesome.
Hello, and thank you for your presentation. I have a very detailed question, but regarding the map roulette process you set up, you already gave us very tremendous figures of things that has been fixed in map roulette, but have you measured things that has been measured, resolved outside of map roulette? How do you handle the fact that some contributors may fix errors outside of it?
I don't really. I mean, I notice, I look at the data every month, so I see the changes as they appear. And like for most layers, things just happen. It's just there's a new object, and yeah, that's okay. So I haven't tried to quantify that.
Hello. My life gets more surreal the older I get. Last weekend, I was talking to an old university colleague who I'd not met in 15 years. He said, "Joe, have you ever heard of Wikidata?" I said, "Sure, Andy. What's up? What do you want to do?" He says, "Well, I'm trying to sort out the Church of England database in the UK." And here I am. Anyway, observation. Were you at Robert Whittaker's talk this morning on taking in data points from all the places? So, you know, essentially branded data banks, but also features that you're talking about, like churches, hospitals, etc. And it's just, and then trying to compare against OSM and having a two-way street, possibly improving both data sets. And it strikes me that you're both trying to do, in essence, similar things, and both developing your own tools. And maybe you two should become friends.
First, I'm from Belgium, so I know a thing or two about surrealism. Yeah, totally. And I asked the question this morning, like, yeah, is there a way to give you things to put into the SurveyMe app? Yeah, and I think definitely the like the two-way street part is very interesting that you can, yeah.
Well, I think the easy way there is, if I don't know what the structure of the open data is, or how you're getting it in Belgium, France, etc., is that there's pathways in, and he's contributing. He's essentially taking the data from a common project which people are adding to, and it's not just the UK. It's around the world, and the more people contribute to the same thing, the more mass it has, and the more commonality you can generate around tools.
Hi, thanks very much indeed. First of all, just to say that I thought that was extremely interesting, almost at a philosophical level, of how OSM data, geographic data, relates to other data sources, mainly official government ones, or it could be in the context I work in, for example, in humanitarian mapping and disaster relief, it could be UN data, common operational data sets, or agency data, like UNICEF having its own data set, say, which just typically does happen. You know, how do these all exist in relation to each other? Which ones you focus on, which ones you use? But more specifically, a question, have you looked at options and opportunities for feeding your merged, improved data set back into either the government data or into OSM? So, you know, I was sort of taking it as an assumption that your result is better, but can that then benefit the other two? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a complicated affair, I guess. A part of the answer is that our version isn't always so much better as more fit for purpose for what we want to do specifically. So it's not that our resulting school data, for example, is better than anything else. It's just for what we want to do. It's better. Like when it comes to for example, if we find that when we make the integrated data set of schools, automatically we know which ones are missing in OpenStreetMap and which ones are missing in the official data. And yes, when we find weird cases where we don't understand why this is, then we will contact the owner of that official data to ask, oh, what is going on, why is this happening? And sometimes you will notice that an organization is not quite capable, basically, of collecting the information about their own POIs because of organizational processes in governments. They are complicated. So yeah, then you can really send them. Then you can really send them like specific cases where things go wrong. No.
Thanks for the talk. It sounds like you do the updates on a sort of monthly or regular basis. Do you have anything in place to detect like deletions of anchor objects or anything that might identify kind of field changes that would cause mismatches in future?
Yeah, so deletions are explicitly picked up by the process, and I have like a system that checks for everything that has been deleted. Before I actually push an update of the anchors, I go to check which of the deletions have an impact on what already exists elsewhere in the database. So I only really care about deletions that impact us, and only those I will really investigate. Unless, of course, in the visual inspection I say there's something fishy is going on. Don't know if that.
Well, thanks again, Joost, and